How awesome are you? Could you be even more awesome than you are? Do you even know who you are? These are the kinds of questions we're going to cover today with my special guest, Michelle Mckown-Campbell. Is that right? Okay.
That
All
is.
right. So Michelle and I are friends. We met through National Speakers Association Carolinas. And most of my guests have a personal connection with me. We've met somewhere along the line. And Michelle and I actually went out for Valentine's Day with our husbands. Unbeknownst to us, we were sitting at the same show. So I got to know her and her husband and have a wonderful evening with them. One of the things that caught my ear the first time I heard Michelle speak as a speaker was her English accent. And as someone who loves the UK, and I'm going back again in July, it's always fun to talk to somebody with that accent. So let me tell you a little bit about Michelle. She's a professional speaker, a confidence coach, and an awesome activator. We all need that, an awesome activator. She's got over 25 years experience in HR, recruiting, and coaching. She's interviewed thousands of individuals from graduates to CEOs across multiple industries. And along the way, she became aware that applicants were not connected to their true identity and value. Not being connected in this way can dramatically increase mental health problems such as confidence issues and all kinds of things. So she saw an opportunity to reverse the situation by connecting people back to their tapestry of awesome, which is an acronym. And we're going to find out more about the awesome framework here in just a minute. So her goal is to help people and enable them to live an authentic life as they own their value and fulfill their dreams confidently. So just reading that, I feel even more awesome. Welcome, Michelle. It's so great to see you.
Thank you, Barbara. It's lovely to be here. Really is.
Yeah. So I think I did see you present a little bit like a 5-minute clip for National Speakers Association Carolinas about the awesome framework. And just even that 5-minute clip was just like a trailer of what you could expect. So can you walk us through what you like to do and how does that work?
Okay, now I'd love to. I mean, predominantly what I talk about is awesomeness, like you said, but it's about everybody recognizing they have a tapestry of awesome today in themselves, right here, right now. And I think so often we can forget that we've got that awesomeness.
Mm-hmm.
And so with my clients and in my presentations, I take people on a journey to actually connect and gather their awesomeness, gather the undeniable proof that they are awesome. And I have a framework that enables people to assess, wake up, and engage their gifts, that connect with their
Mm-hmm.
awe, so they can strengthen and optimize their true potential and really be inspired by who they are. The M and the E right at the end, me. Be inspired by who they are today. And that's what we talk about. So often we think we're not awesome, but we are. And whoever needs to hear this today, I'm just going to shake you and say, oh, you really are awesome. Even if you're number one of the scale of 1 to 10, are still
Mm-hmm.
awesome.
So
Yeah.
how do you let's start with the assess. How do you figure out what the ingredients are that makes up your awesomeness profile?
So it's looking at what we have already, our strengths, our experiences, our lessons that we've learned in life, our skills, and then looking at our contributions. How do we show up? So when I'm doing workshops, we go through a creative activity. We build our awesome tree. We connect to our roots first and foremost. Where do we come from? How far do our roots spread? And it's incredible how much we forget that we've got. When somebody writes a resume, if they're looking for a new job, they usually start with a resume that is old, it's historical, and it's not kept up to date. So we are trying to go back into our memories as to what did we do and when did we do it? How did we do it? And so we perceive what we've done in a completely different way to if we create that on a day-by-day basis. So it's a life lesson. It's a muscle that you have to keep utilizing on a day-by-day basis of collecting your awesome leaves to really see on a day-by-day basis just the awesomeness, growing just like a tree does. Just from seed, and the rings of the trunk go out year on year, day on day. And the leaves, they come out and some drop, but we pick them back up again. So it's really a muscle that we have to work. but we need to see the proof. That's the key.
Okay.
Assessment about, recognizing what you have today.
Well, I like the way that you say it keeps growing. And I think that's wonderful because it's not like it's just a snapshot of a moment at time. It kind of is, but you are going to go back and look and then go forward. So, can you give us an example of some kinds of strengths that people might uncover, or give us like maybe you've got a story where somebody came in and they were like, oh, I can't believe I have that. I never knew about it. Does that ever
Yeah.
happen?
Oh, many, many times. People will tell me, oh, I've always wanted to do this particular job, but I don't have the skills or the ability.
Oh,
And
mm-hmm,
it's incredible how through that conversation, because the tree is your life resume. So
mm-hmm,
through that conversation, they're recognizing the skills and connections,
mm-hmm,
those little projects that they'd forgotten that they'd done, the time that they were able to lead a group or, step in for somebody and, be in a position of seniority that they completely forgot. They wouldn't write it on their resume, but as we talked through, they've recognized that that was a moment that they can then use those transferable skills in the role that they would like to move forward and do. So as we're going through that process, so often people will tell me, oh, I can't. And within a very short space of time, they recognize that, oh, maybe I can. Now,
mm-hmm,
we as women do this all the time where we feel like we have to be 99% of the way there with the skills, have absolute undeniable proof and, examples of to share before we will actually put our hand up and go for a promotion. But
mm-hmm.
men don't. Men will go with much less of the experience and skill set. So, many, many times somebody has said they can't, but by the time they've recognized their awesomeness, they see that they can. That opens doors of opportunity. That opens many, many opportunities to see your vision bigger, to
Mm-hmm.
dream bigger and think bigger and see yourself as so much more awesome than you were when you started this process. And
Mm-hmm.
nothing's changed other than how you perceive yourself, your thoughts on yourself,
Mm-hmm.
um, which is just fantastic. So it creates opportunity, roles, opportunities. I've also had people that are on the spectrum of autism that
Mm-hmm.
will see all the things that they can't do. And then when we start to talk about what they can do, can see actually the gifts and their abilities that they have today. So often, again, we all talk ourselves out, don't we? We tell ourselves all the time what we can't do. We should have
Mm-hmm.
done what we would have done. Well, let's talk about what you did do, what you have got, and what you can do.
Mm-hmm.
A much more exciting place to be. And then you're coming from a place of abundance. Now I've got
Right.
all of this to offer. Oh my goodness, now what can I do?
Mm-hmm.
You can go and have that conversation and, turn up tomorrow when you go back into work as the real you, the truth.
Mm-hmm.
Starts to create all kinds of opportunities.
Yeah, it sounds like there's a lot of confidence, maybe even pride, and maybe even just kind of an ease in knowing who you are. Is it,
It really is.
is that kind of how it works?
It really is. The first question when you go into interview is tell me a little bit about yourself.
Oh, I
The
know.
first question, and how many of us, we prepare, but do we really
Mm-hmm.
know ourselves? The first time when we meet, somebody, we want to know about you.
Mm-hmm.
And so often we're not ready for that conversation because who we are
Mm-hmm.
changes. So yes, this shouldn't be difficult, and yet we focus on all the stuff we don't have.
Yes,
So we go
and
and get
I
down.
would, I would also say sometimes people focus too much on their job. I know I've met people, and it's, I've said, what are you? Oh, I'm an HR director or something. And so, what a lot of the folks who listen to my podcast are in marketing, public relations, digital transformation, and so their job is to become a brand for someone else, to think like the customer, to have the brand personas, to really get inside the head of the customer so that they can make the best decisions for solutions, services, all these things. But they're also stressed out because if you're checking out of who you are all day long, then who are you at the end of the day? So what advice would you give for folks who are in that career, and it might not even be marketing and PR, but in a career where they are so checked into their job, and they have to be because they've got to be there all the time? How do they step back to really discover their own awesomeness?
Well, the first question we need to be asking ourselves on a day-by-day basis is, what is going to make today an awesome day? What one
Oh,
or
that's
two
good. Yeah.
things,
Hmm.
two things do you need to do that give you undeniable proof that you're awesome, that
Hmm.
you're doing your very, very best? Now, we can talk about, goals,
Hmm.
but I don't know what challenges you overcame today just to get here, Barbara.
Hmm.
Only you know that. So it doesn't have to be a huge thing. It could be just a small thing that
Hmm.
one or two small things that give you the opportunity midday to check in and say, hey, like, you're in the restroom, you're looking at yourself in that mirror. How many of us even do that? Like, properly take a moment just to say, you're awesome, straight back in the mirror,
Hmm.
and just come back to self, instead of letting that day run by. And it's at the end of the day, then, I have a celebration jar. Sounds crazy, but we need color in our lives, and we need
Right.
play in our worlds. So if you've got in your office a clear jar, I have a big pasta sauce jar. And
Hmm.
every time I do something that I recognize just for me, I write it on a little bit of colored paper and I put it in that jar. Now, there are days when I've got tough days in the office. I can just look at that jar and remind myself and see all those bits of paper building,
Hmm. Hmm.
and remind myself, you're doing your best. You're pretty awesome. What is the one or two things that I'm going to recognize later? So it's taking those moments that aren't about, the big things, actually about the everyday little tiny things. I
Hmm.
love that quote from Hans Christian Andersen, that we are surrounded by miracles, and fortunately we see them as ordinary things.
Oh,
And
that's so
that's
true, isn't it? Yeah.
it's so true. That's what
Hmm.
we do. There's all these miracles happening. The conversation that you've just had, picking up the phone for the difficult conversation, not closing your door but keeping it open, and being available. All of those things that we're doing, on a day-by-day basis, that we drop because they're not huge miracles, but they are, because we are.
Hmm.
We're miracles. We're awesome, like filled with awesomeness, but we have to stop to see it. So I would ask all of your viewers to just take a moment. What ordinary thing means that they're awesome today? I don't know. Maybe they didn't press snooze. Maybe they drank that extra glass of water. Maybe they walked to the cookie jar, but they
Hmm.
didn't take the cookie. Like, whatever it may be, it doesn't have to be at the end, of the scale on 10 max. That's not awesomeness. One is, like I say, and everything in between. The other thing I would also say is, when we set goals, when do you celebrate those goals? Usually at the end, when
Hmm.
we've achieved the
Hmm.
task.
Right.
But actually, on day one, where you wrote the goal and you did something different, that's when we should be checking in to see our awesomeness and celebrating at that point, because that was the biggest hurdle. That was the biggest challenge, to do something differently for the first, second, and third time. By the time we get to the end of the goal, we've got into a routine, we've got a habit created, but we don't. We wait till we've run the mile. Well, what about the day that you got the shoes on and you got out and you walked for 5 minutes? I think that's a huge, that's a miracle. Did something different.
That's something, right, right. And I think sometimes, I don't know, what do you think when people set a goal, sometimes they stop progress because they don't see any progress, when actuality they might have made some and maybe they were supposed to go in a different direction anyway. Do you see that?
Yes, yes, yes. Because we get so hung up on it has to be only this way.
Yes. And
And
sometimes it's other people's goals for us instead of our own, you know? You should
yes.
be doing this. Okay. So yeah.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
before we hit record, you were talking about how people, when they see awesomeness, sometimes they like peek behind the curtain and they close it and they're like, that can't be me. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you were talking about? I was so fascinated. I told Michelle to stop so I could hit record and she could tell me later. So if you could just tell me about
Absolutely.
that.
Again, one of my favorite poems is Marianne Williamson,
Mhm,
Our Deepest Fear. And what she talks about in that is our deepest fear is the light, not the dark. And I
mhm,
really feel certainly throughout all of my years, even going back to school time,
mhm,
okay, what we do so often is we try to fit in. So we dim our lights to fit in.
mhm.
Nobody wants to stand out,
Right.
okay?
Yeah. Hmm.
Because that, the person that always puts their hand up, the person that always answers the question, we kind of sit back and we try to fit in, especially as teenagers.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so I've come across this in my personal life, but it's been a lot of my journey whereby you just do enough. You just do enough to get through that test.
Mm-hmm.
Just do enough to step out of your comfort zone. And so we never ever see, rarely do we see our full potential. What would happen if we put, threw ourselves fully, 110% into something and really experience our full potential? Because there is so much more available to us. Well, how often have you, your listeners, opened that door, seen the brightness, the direction? Yeah. Even though it's something we desperately want to do, it makes us so happy. It brings us joy. We know in our head we can do it. But the moment that door is opened and that light has started to shine bright, we literally run to where we're comfortable in the little gray area just to keep ourselves safe. And so I find this a lot, what we're doing when we're looking at awesomeness is really tapping in to our true potential. What difference would it make if we all truly knew what our potential was and recognized that it's unlimited? How many times have we been in difficult situations, we've overcome challenges that if we'd have written it down, like we couldn't have seen a way forward or how we were ever going to overcome this. Yet here we are, listening to this podcast. Okay, so there's untapped potential there. What difference would it make to our lives if we truly tapped into that? If our youngsters truly tapped into that and it was okay to see the fullness of who we are, that full awesomeness? I think it would be an incredible world. And what I see from my clients is when they start to see that, again, they start to dream bigger. Young people see a whole world out there that they have access to, that beforehand they didn't believe they had an opportunity to join. They were limiting themselves. But when you can see that everything about you will help you move forward. That's the good, the bad, the downright ugly, the real ugly, and the truly awesome. All of that's going to help you forward. Yet so many of us are sort of dimmed in shame, guilt, just this kind of resentment of and feeling like we're behind. If all those challenges coming are going to be the things that really create the awesome, but you're not meant to hide them all. We're really meant to see who we are, all of it. And when we can see that, oh my goodness, it's amazing how people show up differently. It's crazy. My name's Michelle. It took me a long time to realize this. My name's Michelle. I spent a lot of years running anywhere but to who I was, living at the back of my shell, peering out to the world, terrified to put my hand up in class, really struggled with self-confidence. Nobody would have known this. I came across as if I had it all together. People say, "Now you're always so together." No, inside I was like, literally, what is going on? And so I tried to find out who I was by joining different groups and different friend sets and literally changing who I was, morphing into whoever they were, thinking that would help. When actually I needed to just find me. None of us fit in a box. We're meant to have a bit of this and a bit of that and a bit, it's all truly awesome, this tapestry. Now, when we've got all of that and we recognize we've overcome this challenge and we've got this strength and we've got this skill, literally everything can be created from there on in. We can create our own awesomeness and our own journey, and then we can dream, really dream, and make those dreams come true.
That's really beautiful. Yes. And I think you're right. People go to the gray zone because it's easy, and they're fearful. And so, yeah, once they've internalized their awesomeness, that is really great. And you touched on belonging, which I think is fascinating because a lot of us do that even when we're out of school. We'll join a group because we think we're going to be like those folks. They're going to be who we are. We're going to find our people. So, do we need to find our people, or what advice do you have on how to be awesome on your own, or should you share it? What is belonging? How does that fit into all this?
Well, belonging covers, three areas. It's just being seen for who you are. And the
Okay.
only way you can see who you are is to be seen for who you are, is to
Hmm.
know who you are. So if I don't know who I am, how can you get to know me?
Good
It
point.
starts
Yeah.
with
Not
me,
gonna
and I'm
work.
going
Yeah.
to show. Yeah. So being seen for who you truly are, your authentic self. Now, if that changes, and as it does, it changes all
Mhm.
the time, that should be okay too. It's not putting yourself, all these labels on and that's it. This is me as I grow. That's who you're getting to know. But also, so three stages: being seen for who you are, being your potential seen. Now, if I
Okay.
don't know my potential, how can I possibly share that with you? And
Hmm.
not feeling alone.
Hmm.
Now, that aloneness comes when we do not know who we are. And we're putting on this persona, this kind of face. My personal experiences in my, I didn't find my husband until much later in life. Didn't have my son till much later in life. Turning 40, late 30s, early 40s. And so I went through this huge period of time where it felt like I was behind everybody, playing catch up. So you're in your 30s and you want to be out because you want to go out and meet people and find your tribe and find your group and your people, but you don't want to be with the youngsters because that's not who you are. You want to be with your friends, but they're all down and they're all doing the family thing. So that's all reminding you of everything you don't have. So you're in this kind of no man's land. Well, what happens is you have to come back to you, not meant to fit into any particular box. But once I know who I am and what I want out of life and what my potential is, then all these doors kind of open and your tribe comes to you. And I remember years ago, somebody saying this to me. My husband and I giggle about, the dream, field of dreams.
Yes. Yes. Hmm.
Build the fields that they'll
Hmm.
come.
Hmm.
That's what happens when you really connect in and you are grounded and you're in your own skin, like you're properly
Hmm.
here, being who you are. It's amazing who then turns up, what opportunities come to you, the people you bump into, the conversations you have. None of that was happening before because I couldn't connect because I didn't know how to connect because I wasn't connected to me. So belonging is very much, it starts with us. Know who you are, know what your potential is. Know, gather those roots and the proof that you're not alone, because we're not. That doesn't mean we have to be surrounded by people all the time, but we have connections, this web that has developed through our entire lives.
That's true.
That
Yeah, that's why I have my podcast, Growing Social Now. I was telling you I like to reach out to people I've met over the years, and some of them go way, way back, and it's really nice to touch base. So you just never know, and a lot never know what's happened in that time. They have new connections, you have new connections, and it's almost like a fresh start. So, yeah.
Yes, yes, yes. I think so often, and I think especially when we think about mobile phones, I always have
Yes.
this conversation with friends. Well, I'll say, why didn't you pick up the phone? Why did you text? We could have had a conversation, like, and the
Hmm.
conversation
Hmm.
would have been completely different dynamic. Why do we second guess whether somebody's going to be busy or not? Should I call at this time or not? No, if you feel the urge to reach out to someone, that there's something there.
Right.
Pick
Yeah.
up, have a conversation,
Hmm.
if it needs to be a text at that point, whatever way. But don't think, oh, I'm not going to phone because I don't want to interrupt. We won't answer the phone if we're busy.
Exactly. And people are so
Kind of
happy
how
to hear from you. If you really want to stand out, call somebody. Even if they don't answer the phone, you'll get their attention. So, yeah, and leave a
yeah,
voicemail. So,
leave.
yeah,
Yes, yes, yes. I don't know why we've all stopped doing this. And
I don't
trying to keep
know.
it brief. I don't know.
I
You
know.
know,
Yeah.
yeah, we can do that.
Yeah. So, I guess, one of my questions I had for you is how did you come up with all of this, Michelle? Because it's really well thought out, and I know you've done a lot of work, and it'd be fascinating to hear about the backstory.
Yeah, well, it's my story. This, no, this is the end, or should I say, the continuation of my story. I had this persona that everything was great. I ticked the boxes at school. I did the,
Hmm. Hmm.
I was a great student. I was an average student. I went to university. I worked, but all the way through, confidence was my biggest hurdle, or lack of confidence.
Okay.
Now, people will have looked at me and probably, if they're hearing this now, thinking, seriously, like what? Because I did crazy things, I had all the friends and I traveled and I worked abroad and I worked in HR, I made things happen. The biggest demon was that negative self-talk and that doubt and
Yeah.
imposter. It really was throughout my whole career. When
Mhm.
throughout my career in HR, what I was finding, because I worked in roles that kind of spanned the whole of an organization. Even when I worked in HR, if I was recruiting, I would go and actually do that role, sit with those people. And so I had have a really good grasp of organizational structure and the job description and the expectations and etc. The skill set that's required. And when I was interviewing people, I would be desperately wanting them to talk about something in their resume that I knew they'd done, a project that they'd been involved in, or just an experience that they'd had, or just wanted them to really tell me, who are you? You're just giving me the black and white, repeat of your resume, not getting a sense of who are you underneath without the labels. Who are you? And I just kept seeing this more and more. It didn't matter if it was entry level applicant would come in and they'd almost be doubtful that they had a right to be sat there. Well, if I'm interviewing you, I've seen something that you have that I think
Right.
is going to mean that you can do
Yeah.
the job.
Mhm.
But I was having to drag all of this information out, from them, and we don't always have the time to do that.
Oh,
So
no.
you can't help but feel like you're missing great applicants. Even as a senior, CEOs, directors, senior management, a lot of those people were coming not truly understanding what they had to offer and their value, depending on their mindset as to why they were looking for work. And usually things aren't going well. Yeah. That something's changed in the current organization or your role or your life. So you're coming from a place quite often when we're interviewing where you're coming from lack. Yeah.
Right.
Even
Yeah.
because things aren't going well, you haven't got the opportunity where you
Hmm.
currently are, so
Hmm.
you're looking for the next opportunity. And so the reason that I kind of stepped out of this HR and started doing this myself is because I was having these conversations, behind the scenes of, we may be going through a reorganization, but this could be a win-win. This could be a win-win. Like if you really look at the opportunity here,
Hmm.
uh, your health is being affected, you're stressed, you're under pressure. Look at the other opportunities, what you can do. And so when I came over to America, I was given this crazy opportunity to not be able to work. And I can say this with a smile now because at the time it was really difficult. I came over here and I would have just gone straight back into HR and seen the HR and carried on my my corporate career. And I couldn't work. And so I had to look at different ways of, do it, like just basically was told stop. You stop. The universe told me stop. You cannot work. I couldn't volunteer because I couldn't get security checked because I was new in the country and visas, and then COVID happened. So what could I use? I could use my awesomeness to try and see where I wanted to go next. I had to assess where I was, wake up who I was, because I wasn't an HR person anymore. Couldn't do that. And then I had to engage my gifts. So I started working with clients on their awesomeness, their resume. COVID happened, people were losing their jobs. How could we see this in the most positive way? Well, when you're not working, you get an opportunity to go back, assess, wake up, and engage your gifts, connect with your awe, and really see and up level your resume ready for when the doors opened. And so that's where this came from, the framework came from, was being able to sit and go through this work with people through COVID, which I did for free. So if you are looking for a job, let's get excited now. And so when the day comes that the doors open, you are ready to step into the next role that's a step up from where you are now. Because that was the opportunity that so many had. And that's how this developed. Now, my creative process came from a very special client of mine who I met mum, and and this is the story you heard, they told me that they were just distraught because a friend of theirs had tried to commit suicide. They've been given if I'm honest, at the time when I was having this conversation, I was thinking, I'm not sure I'm your girl. Like, this seems way bigger.
It's a tough one. Yeah.
It's really tough. But they were worried that their daughter was going to end up in the same place. And they said, would you just meet them? Now, I was told that they had a disability. They were on the spectrum, although not diagnosed, of autism. They had mental health issues. They truly believed that they were not ever going to be independent and successful. There was no future. That's basically what I was given. And I just thought, how can I connect with this individual? And so as I sit here now thinking, is it really me that should be showing up? What can I do? I just had this urge to be creative and grabbed my pens, my paper, my scissors, glue. And after half an hour of that person telling me all the things that they couldn't do, they would not make eye contact with me. They sat and they just listed every reason why they were not awesome. It was just heart-wrenching, with mum at the side, just like almost agreeing that that's where we were. I remember saying to that person, would you like to create your awesome tree and look at what you can do? And that's the first time that they went from here to here. We went on the journey and created started to create their tree. 2 hours later, I get a text message from mum saying, you're never going to believe this, but they are still asking people for their leaves. They're like excited. That person is now working. That person is living on their own.
Oh, that's so cool. Yeah.
Working and seeing their awesomeness. There is never, ever anybody that does not have awesomeness. But we have to just take a moment to open that door and see it, see the light, see what we can do and what we have got. And then, like I've said before, everything is possible. Everything's possible. Anything is possible. But if you can't see that, then it's it's really easy to see all the things we can't do. Should have done, would have done, could have done.
Absolutely. Wow, Michelle. So I mean, this is very inspiring. And you know what I like about it is it sounds simple. It's, I know it's not. It's hard to go inside and look at the qualities and strengths that you have that are awesome. But I love how just during the day, you can find a couple little things that make you feel great about who you are and feel awesome, So I feel like even if you just approach that mindset and try it for a day and just say, was that awesome? And you can give yourself a high five or whatever it is that you do. Yeah. So I really appreciate you sharing your wisdom, and I would love for our listeners to know where they can find you online.
Yeah, and on my website, it's probably the easiest way, which is activatetheawesome.com.
All right.
That's a
Okay. And one thing I like to do when I end my interviews is to ask you for your word of the day. So, what is your word of the day?
gotta be awesome.
I was going to guess. Yes. Awesome. Yeah. And every time I think about that, I think of the Lego song, Everything is Awesome. So everyone is awesome, so
Everyone is. Yeah.
yes.
I would definitely ask your listeners, Barbara, please, please, please decide right now what one thing they need to do today that needs to happen that will prove they are awesome. Just
Oh, good challenge and call to action. I love it. I'm going to say make it 3. So anyway, I'm a high achiever, but even just deciding to do 3 is awesome, right? Or even just doing 1. Yeah.
whatever number comes to you, there's no rule to this. But
Exactly.
if we start with 1, I mean, we can all do 1.
Exactly. Yeah. All right. So thanks so much. And here's to all the awesome people who are listening. You are all awesome in your own way. Please connect with Michelle if you need a speaker or a coach and you want to discover who you really are. If you want to get sunburned by the bright light, actually you won't. But anyway, if you want to see the light and the potential, Michelle is the one who can guide you there. So thanks again, Michelle. And thank you for all of you awesome folks for listening. This podcast is brought to you by Corey West Media, and we invite you to listen and subscribe to wherever you like to get your podcast downloads. And we're now on YouTube as well. So thanks again. And until next time, be awesome.